On October 4th, 1982, a bomb attached to Frank Rosenthal's Cadillac exploded in a Las Vegas parking lot. The fireball rose above the strip. The driver's side door landed 30 feet away. Witnesses assumed they were watching a man die. Frank walked away with burns on his legs and ringing in his ears, but alive. For 26 years, that car bomb was the most famous thing about Frank Rosenthal. The mob tried to kill him and failed. It made him a legend, and it made him the inspiration for Robert De Niro's character in Casino. But 2 weeks after Frank died in 2008, investigators revealed something that rewrote his entire story. He wasn't just a survivor of the Mafia's collapse. He was the one who caused it. His FBI codename was Achilles. This is the real ending that Casino never showed you. It starts with understanding how Frank survived that bomb in the first place. The 1981 Cadillac Eldorado had a manufacturing quirk that nobody outside General Motors knew about. That model year, General Motors engineers discovered a balancing issue with the chassis. When drivers took certain turns at high speeds, the car wobbled dangerously, so they installed a heavy metal stabilization plate directly under the driver's seat. Frank had no idea this plate existed. Neither did the men who built his bomb. When the explosive detonated beneath the gas tank, the blast force shot upward toward the driver's compartment. In almost any other car, that force would have torn through the seat and killed Frank instantly. But the metal plate acted like a shield. It deflected the explosion outward through the door instead of upward through his body. He didn't survive because he was chosen. He survived because General Motors accidentally built him a tank. But to understand why the Chicago outfit wanted Frank Rosenthal dead in the first place, you need to understand who he actually was. And who Frank Rosenthal was, more than anything else, was a walking contradiction who broke the most basic rule of organized crime: stay invisible. The Chicago outfit hired him to run the biggest illegal skimming operation in Las Vegas history. Frank was secretly controlling the Stardust, the Fremont, the Hacienda, and the Marina casinos. Millions of dollars in cash were being siphoned off the casino floors before it ever hit the official books, then shipped in suitcases back to mob bosses in Chicago, Kansas City, and Milwaukee. We are talking about an operation that moved between $7 and $15 million per year in untraceable cash, money that funded mob operations across the Midwest, money that kept entire crime families in power. This operation required absolute secrecy. The entire scheme depended on nobody knowing who was actually running these casinos. One wrong move, one federal investigation, one talkative employee, and the whole thing collapses. So what did Frank Rosenthal do? He started hosting his own television show right there on the Stardust casino floor, with his name in neon lights above the stage. The Frank Rosenthal show aired every Saturday night to audiences across Nevada. He sat behind a desk like Johnny Carson, wearing tailored suits and gold jewelry, interviewing the biggest celebrities in America. Frank Sinatra appeared on the show and sang. Bob Hope sat across from him, cracking jokes about Las Vegas. Even the chairman of the Nevada Gaming Control Board came on as a guest, shaking Frank's hand on live television. Think about that for a second. The man secretly running the largest mafia skimming operation in the country was interviewing state gaming officials on camera, asking them questions about casino regulations, while actively violating every single one of those regulations behind the scenes. His bosses back in Chicago were furious. They sent messages through intermediaries begging him to cancel the show, and they threatened him through back channels. Tony Spilotro, the outfit's enforcer in Las Vegas, the character Joe Pesci played in the movie, reportedly told associates that Frank had lost his mind, that he was going to get them all killed or arrested. But Frank Rosenthal believed he was untouchable. He thought he had transcended the Chicago outfit. He thought his celebrity status somehow protected him from the consequences that applied to ordinary criminals. He gave interviews to newspapers, he attended red carpet events, and he posed for photographs with politicians and movie stars, all while committing federal felonies every single day of his life. This was not just arrogance. This was a psychological blind spot so massive that it would eventually get people killed, and it started with something as small as a blueberry muffin. The blueberry muffin scene from Casino is one of the most memorable moments in the film. Robert De Niro holds up a muffin in the Stardust Bakery, furious that the blueberries aren't evenly distributed. It seems like Hollywood exaggeration, the kind of detail screenwriters add to make a character feel obsessive and quirky. But this actually happened. Frank Rosenthal admitted it himself in interviews years later. He demanded exactly 10 blueberries per muffin in the Stardust coffee shop. Not 9, not 11, 10. He would personally inspect the muffins every morning and send back entire batches that didn't meet his specifications. The bakers in that kitchen probably thought he was insane. But for Frank, the blueberries weren't really about blueberries at all. Frank Rosenthal was a professional gambler before he ever worked for the mob. He made his reputation on the streets of Chicago by handicapping sporting events with almost supernatural accuracy. He could predict outcomes that bookmakers couldn't see coming. His entire worldview was built on the belief that if you gathered enough information and controlled enough variables, you could beat any system, any game, any opponent. The casinos were just bigger games with higher stakes. The muffins were just smaller ones with lower consequences. If he could regulate the blueberries, he could regulate the dealers. If he could control the coffee shop, he could control the counting room. If he could master the tiny details that everyone else ignored, he could master the massive criminal enterprise surrounding him. This obsession with control was the source of Frank's genius. He really was the best casino operator Las Vegas had ever seen. He caught cheaters that nobody else could catch. He spotted card counters from across the room. He designed surveillance systems that became industry standards. Still used today, he understood the mathematics of gambling better than almost anyone alive. But this same obsession was also his fatal flaw. While Frank was counting blueberries, adjusting table layouts, and demanding that cocktail waitresses smile at exactly the right angle, the men around him were making very different calculations. They were counting bullets, and Frank's arrogance convinced him that he could control them too. He was wrong. Nobody was ever arrested for the car bombing. Frank always suspected Tony Spilotro was behind it, though he could never prove it. The most likely explanation is that multiple factions within the mob wanted Frank dead for different reasons. His television show had drawn too much federal heat. His arrogance had insulted too many bosses, and the entire Las Vegas skim was starting to collapse under investigation. The car bomb was supposed to clean house. It was supposed to eliminate the liability before he could talk. Instead, it just proved that Frank Rosenthal was impossible to kill. But here's the thing. Frank did not just survive the car bomb. He survived the entire collapse of the Las Vegas Mafia, and that is where the real story gets dark. If you are finding this story as twisted as I think it is, hit subscribe. We cover the real stories behind Hollywood's greatest crime movies every week. Now here's where everything falls apart. The movie Casino ends with Ace Rothstein retiring quietly to San Diego. He loses his wife Ginger to a drug overdose. He loses his casino empire to federal investigators. He watches from a distance as Tony Spilotro gets beaten to death and buried in a cornfield, and then he fades into obscurity, running a small sports book, living out his days as a survivor of a violent era. It's a melancholy ending, bittersweet, but it's also clean. Ace walks away as a victim of the mob's collapse, someone who got caught in the machine and barely escaped with his life. That ending is a complete fabrication. 2 weeks after Frank Rosenthal died of a heart attack on October 13th, 2008, investigative reporter Jane Ann Morrison published a story in the Las Vegas Review Journal that shattered everything we thought we knew about his life. She had obtained federal documents proving that Frank Rosenthal was a top echelon FBI informant. His official code name in FBI files was Achilles. For years, possibly decades, the man who ran the largest Mafia skimming operation in Las Vegas was feeding information directly to the federal government. This explains everything that never made sense before. How did Frank survive when everyone else around him was murdered or imprisoned? Tony Spilotro was found beaten to death and buried in an Indiana cornfield alongside his brother, Michael. The Spilotro brothers had been lured to a meeting, ambushed, and beaten until their faces were unrecognizable. The Kansas City bosses received life sentences. The Chicago bosses went to federal prison. Every single person connected to Operation violently or was convicted on racketeering charges. Every single person except Frank Rosenthal, the man who prided himself on honor and professionalism, the man who demanded absolute loyalty from everyone around him, the man who built an entire public persona around being a professional among amateurs, a man of principle in a world of savages. He was the RAT the whole time. Frank traded the secrets of the Stardust skim for federal immunity. He gave the FBI the names, the dates, the dollar amounts, the locations of the money drops. He helped them understand how the counting room worked and who was taking what. He essentially handed them the keys to dismantle an empire that had trusted him with everything. And when the killing started, Frank already knew it was coming because he was the one who set it in motion. Frank Rosenthal didn't get to ride off into the sunset. There was no peaceful retirement, no quiet reflection in San Diego. The real ending was exile and erasure. In 1988, 6 years after he walked away from that burning Cadillac, the state of Nevada officially placed Frank Rosenthal in the Black Book. That's the official list of excluded persons. Being in that book means one thing: it's a felony to set foot in any Nevada casino ever again. You can't walk through the door, you can't place a bet, you can't even eat at the buffet. The city that Frank Rosenthal helped build, the city where he lived like a king and hosted celebrities and ran an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars, that city kicked him out and told him never to come back. He moved to Boca Raton, Florida, a retirement community 3,000 miles from the neon lights of Las Vegas. No more Stardust penthouse overlooking the Strip, no more television cameras, no more Frank Sinatra stopping by to sing a few songs, no more power, just a condo, a telephone, and an offshore sports betting website that he ran from his living room, still trying to apply those same mathematical principles that had made him famous decades earlier, still handicapping games, still believing he could beat the system if he just gathered enough information and controlled enough variables. The man who once commanded an empire of 4 casinos spent his final years taking bets over the internet from gamblers who had no idea who he was. On October 13, 2008, Frank Rosenthal suffered a massive heart attack in that Florida condo. He was 79 years old. He died alone, the last survivor of an era he had personally helped destroy. The Stardust Casino was demolished in 2007, imploded to make room for a new resort development that never got built. The empty lot sat there for years, a monument to nothing. The FBI files containing codename Achilles gathered dust in federal archives, and the blueberry muffins at the coffee shop that replaced the old Stardust bakery probably have however many blueberries the baker feels like putting in them. Frank Rosenthal controlled everything except the one thing that actually mattered: his ending. The movie Casino showed us a tragedy, a cautionary tale about greed and violence and the death of an era. The real story is a betrayal, and the man who betrayed everyone never had to answer for it. He just faded away, alone, in Florida, waiting for a heart attack that finally came. If you want to see how the other Mafia movie characters actually died, that video is on screen now, Subscribe for more real stories behind the movies.